The greenery is still there, the scattered trees in the mysterious forest. The restless winds still sway and blow. Yet, what I remember whenever I visit are the cracks in that wind. The disillusioned heroes of my story are these very wind-fractured people, bearing the weight of their own breaking. There are many of them, and I can remember some, but Rehmat knew them all. He used to tell me about the apparitions who once lived as men and women in the village, the goddess in the forest, who, he believed, gifted him clothes. Gungi, the mute bride, who arrived one evening from nowhere and began to beg at the banyan tree. Kamli, who gathered the charred pages of books that her in-laws had burned and cried helplessly for days. Khema, the Buddha girl, who vanished into the woods one monsoon morning. Salik, Sukhi, and so many others. Each a gust of wind, each a crack in that wind. Good afternoon and namaskar. Sabaiलाई Arun Gupta ko newest book ko launch ma hardik swagat छ. आफ्नो व्यस्तताका बीच पनि समय निकालेर हाम्रो यस खुशीको घडीमा आइदिनु भएकोमा धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद. My name is Lisa and I'm your host for today. I should preface this by mentioning that I'm not exactly a neutral party here. Professor Arun Gupto, the author whose book we are launching this afternoon, is my tulobua. He's family. Now, for people who know him, know that every time you speak to him, his first question is, what are you studying currently? Or what's your future plan? Now, when I was little, these questions sounded a little daunting. Back then, I did not even know what I would have for my next meal. But now that I'm older, I know that his questions and inquiries subtly challenged me to think about my future, about my place in the world, and about the zeal for literary discourse that has brought all of us here today. And that's the interesting thing about him. He doesn't ask these questions because he wants to challenge you. He asks because he's genuinely curious, because he wants to observe and learn, even from a little kid who did not know much about the world. I've heard tales of Bahadurgunj from my Baba, Milo Bua, and Thulo Bua, and have vivid memories of its gullies and chores. And while reading the book, it took me back to our beautiful little village. And although the stories in that book took place a generation ago, I can still reminisce about the eccentric characters and the quaint corners of the village. Bahadurgunj in this book is the idea of a place we leave behind, which in turn refuses to leave us. The book captures that fleeting emotion with such elegance and care that I think it will awaken similar sensibilities in you too. Now, I think I've taken a lot of your time, so let me tell you a bit about how the afternoon will go. We'll launch the book first, then Mr. Vishnu Sapkota here will share with us a few thoughts on the book. After that, Professor Gupto and Professor Sanjeev Upreti will sit down for some chalfal, a conversation between two old friends of more than 3 decades. And to close, Professor Gupto will share a few words of his own. So let me bring them up. Most of you know these three very well, so they hardly need an introduction from me. But let me say a little bit about each of them anyway. Please welcome to the stage the author, Dr. Arun Gupto. He is the founding member and academic director of ISR here in Kathmandu, and for years he taught at the Central Department of English at Tribhuvan University. He is also Director Comparative South Asian Studies at South Asian Foundation for Academic Research, SAFAR. He has spent his whole life close to literature, to theory, to the stories of South Asia. He has given us books like Goddesses of Kathmandu Valley, Literary Theory and Criticism, and Seasons of the Divine, along with his Nepali writing Sanskritic Chintan. And today we add one more to that shelf, Cracks in the Wind. Next, let's welcome Dr. Sanjeev Upreti. I have known him for about as long as I can remember. He teaches at Tribhuvan University. He earned his PhD at Brown, and he later did research at Harvard and at Berkeley. But here at home, most of us know him through his writing Ghan Chakkar, Siddhanta Ka Kura, his play Makai Ko Aur Kai Kheti, and Hangsa. Currently, he is an active member of the citizens movement Brihat Nagarik Andolan, or BNA, a collective of free citizens and intellectuals dedicated to safeguarding the intertwined ideals of democracy and social justice. He is an art critic, a man of the theatre, and I have to say it, a devoted bird watcher. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Vishnu Sapkota. A gold medalist in English literature with an MPhil from Cambridge, he taught for more than 10 years at Tribhuvan University and at ISR. And his first novel, Oriye Ka Paila, came out in 2023. A lot of you will know his columns in Kantipur. He has also spent close to 15 years in senior roles with international organizations, including the United Nations. Today, he is affiliated as an Asia expert to the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies, University of Notre Dame, USA, where he served as a fellow previously. And now, the moment we are all here for, Dr. Gupto, gentlemen, would you like to do the honors and unveil the book? There it is, Cracks in the Wind. Congratulations, we are all so proud of you. Now, to begin the reflections on the book, let me invite Mr. Vishnu Sapkota to share his thoughts.
Thank you, Lisa. Namaskar. Good afternoon. I am nervous, as you can see, to speak here in front of my teachers. I always feel like I'm here to defend my thesis, still after more than 30 years. But here I am. So, for a long time, very long time, it was definite, almost definite, that Professor Arun Gupto would write this book. Almost definite. I'll come back to that point later. But it was least definite that I would have the honor, the privilege, to be a speaker on the book at its launch. When I got the invitation, I didn't know how I deserved that. But after I went through the book, I think I might have understood how I might have earned that privilege. By temperament, when I speak in public, I'm a very impatient person. I'm passionate, and when I'm passionate, I get impatient. And what that means is I disclose everything before time. So about why I might have earned this privilege, I'll refrain for now. And also I have a few notes here to control myself so that I don't get too passionate and too impatient. So to discipline myself, I may not be looking at my notes a lot, but I have them to discipline myself. So I have known Dr. Arun Gupto for 32 years. That's where I would like to begin. So when I share my thoughts on, before I share my thoughts about cracks in the wind, because this is important. So I knew Professor Arun Gupta first as my professor, then as a colleague, and a friend. I had the privilege, when he began to call me friend. So in all these more than 3 decades of personal association and intellectual exchange and association, he is one of the simplest souls I have interacted with, and at the same time, one of the most enigmatic. At the same time, I emphasize, at the same time, one of the simplest and enigmatic. In every conversation we would have, it always felt there may be something deeper that he means or is trying to mean. So every conversation with him, including even on day-to-day mundane matters sometimes, they necessarily get into some form of intellectual or aesthetic reflection. His persona, in my experience, has that inherent capacity to inevitably mystify the mundane. This elevates the obvious into something noble, what is otherwise obvious into noble. Because of this, I have never had a conversation with him in all these 32 years that has concluded. Every conversation has demanded a new one, and that new one has demanded another one. Never concluded. I do not think we will ever have a conversation that we will both call concluded. While this dimension of his individuality always fascinated me, it also confounded me. It has confounded me, I should speak, has confounded me. Not just in the past tense. Now, if there was any code to decode his enigma, I would so happily get hold of that many years ago, to decode that code. Now let me say this. Cracks in the Wind is that code. While contemplating on how I would summarize the whole book in a few words, I happened to think of Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. Cracks in the Wind is the Arun Gupto code. Because the book revolves around his secret societies and sacred. The secret, sacred societies of his childhood. The mysterious characters that have shaped up the aesthetic psyche of Arun Gupto that we have known in the academia. So to me, it's the Arun Gupto code. That's how I would like to define the book. I know in the audience that there may be many, as I see, those who have known, now I'll call Arun Gupto as the author without any honorific, because you know that, know him at a personal level, may have engaged with him intellectually, academically, and there are some who know him publicly as a writer, as a professor, but have never interacted. So I'm cognizant of the diversity of that. So those who have been associated with him personally, academically, intellectually, I think this book is a personal gift that he has given. And to the rest, a beautiful autofictional memoir, and I'll describe why I think so. So, Cracks in the Wind is an autobiographical fiction of a writer who possesses the gift to understand the cracks in the wind. So before I move into sharing a few critical observations on the book, let me confess something about my personal reading choice about autobiographies. Respectfully, because everyone has right to publish their own autobiography, I'm not a fan of Nepali autobiographies. I might have read a few pages of some accidentally, but have not completed most. Mostly those senior bureaucrats or secretary or who has worked in international organization or a former army chief. From hearsay evidence, because I haven't read all of them, it's mostly about because I was in this position, the country is great. Because I was a CDO in this district, that district is great. Because I was this thing is great. So my political response to that would be, because you are in that position, the country is in this situation. So you should take the share. So I actively do not read those autobiographies. Cracks in the Wind is a powerful intellectual rebuke to those traditions of those autobiographies. I hope they will read this to see what an autobiography can also be like. So this is not, of course, to dishonor those. And also, when I compare Cracks in the Wind with those, I felt it can be some kind of dishonor to the book. But why I mention is to share with you what kind of autobiography this is. It is not one of them. Because those autobiographies, the mainstream, let me say, they talk about, okay, this is what I am. Cracks in the Wind is not about what I am. On the contrary, it is about who I am. Who am I? Why am I? This is the book, The Cracks in the Wind. As I read it, I felt this is a journey of reinventing oneself. It is not about the Arun Gupto whom we met at the university. It is about the source that made him the man we met at Kirtipur and at ISR and in his previous books and writings. Cracks in the Wind is a celebration of the tales in which Arun Gupta himself was a character. It is about what makes us who we become when we grow up. It is a code to self-reflection and discovery. So this is an autobiographical fiction of an academic who looks back at his own childhood through an artist's lens. I didn't say writer, an artist's lens. It is fiction because he tells his tales through a narrator where the author himself is a character. I repeat it. You will see how a fact cannot exist in an absolute without our imagination being mixed to it. In fact, a fact simply does not exist if we do not imagine it. A character does not mean anything unless we imagine about the character and add meanings. And about the events too. Events take place outside as facts, but their interpretations are imagined inside in the mind. Now, what do we call them if not fiction? That is why this is an autobiography and this is fiction. And that is why I love Cracks in the Wind. It is the type of autobiography I love. Now, there's one more reason why I loved Cracks in the Wind when I read. That is its characters. Baurawa, Rahmat, Lisa mentioned, Sukhi, Salik, Gungi, the beggar, the singing dacoit, Bimala, Goinche, Khema, Uma. I could talk half an hour about each of them, but I don't have much time. But I thought it would be important to mention the names, just to. I'll come back about these characters briefly, but I cannot talk more than this at the moment because of the constraint of time. So every major character in the book is what we may call, in the popular academic term, a subaltern. They are not only from the margins of the society, they are from the margins even of the margins. But the author does not, this is an important point, but the author does not present those characters whom the readers are appealed to sympathize. No, he doesn't appeal to the readers to sympathize with them. And that's the beauty. It's an important point. So most importantly, I'm sorry to have used even the word subaltern here. I'm using the word subaltern only for the purpose of explaining my point. Because these characters are Arun Gupta's heroes. And that is why Arun Gupto, when I read, was my hero once again. So that is the making of Arun Gupto, the artist. So please note, again, I did not say an academic here, because that's not how he has written this book. A portrait of an artist as a young man, in this case, not even as a young man, as a child and an adolescent. The young man appears briefly, but not much. So this is a portrait of an artist as a child, adolescent. The young man features in the tales a little only, but not as much. So at this point, let me use the phrase the subaltern heroes. Why I am doing this is because when I was in the middle of some of the pages, somewhere in the book, I strongly felt that the stories of the book are a powerful cultural studies text. These are his stories, but this is, to me, a very important cultural studies text. You will see what I mean when you read it, if you have not already read. So a study in the subaltern. They're powerful boys, powerful because they are powerful in stories. So Arun Gupto has written how privileged he was to have these characters around him to make it childhood. They are his heroes. You may also relate this point about my view about Nepal's autobiography and who their heroes are, and compare them with the heroes that Arun sir has, who his heroes are. I think this distinction is very important and powerful. Now I'll move to talk about another feature of the book. The Cracks in the Wind employs a beautiful technique to document the story of his parents through his master narrator, Rahmat. In the book, we get to feel the warmth of family and beauty of love of his parents shared between themselves and their children through an authentic narration of Rahmat. And he creates Rahmat as such an authentic narrator, who is a real character of his life, but he sounds more authentic than the author himself. That, as a technique, is really beautiful. This one is my literary comment. Okay? So through Rahmat, the author learns so much new things about his own parents. His father being a respected doctor in the locality of Bahadurgunj, who ran a clinic at home. And also the author gets to witness so many different lives, the diversity, the people, because they visit his home, because his father was a doctor. So in that sense, the sociological aspect, the political economy of Bahadurgunj and the time in history of that time. So it's a brilliant documentation of all those factors. As we read the book, somewhere we learn that this book was long conceived. So I said at the beginning this was definite, almost, because it's not logical to say everything is definite. That's why I say almost definite. But it was long conceived. But when we read, we know when it was conceived. When I say long, in fact, it's very long time ago. When he knew who his heroes were, Rahmat on top. He had decided in his childhood that he would write a book on Rahmat, on those characters. So it's a book long in the making, decades in the making. That's how, reading this book, it brings us back to those days and its conception. Only thing, like I said, I'll come back to this point later. So while the book is a tale of tender friendship, quote, tender friendship and softer sensibilities, unquote, from the book, it is also fiction full of wits and suspenses. There are stories you simply cannot read without laughing, without smiling with yourself alone, without going back to your own childhood, and there are stories you cannot read without crying. Among my favorite is the story of Dungi, a beggar girl, also Lisa mentioned in her introduction, who turns up in the village, just as an example, turns up in the village one fateful day. Salik marries her, only to find that she is already pregnant. She appears from the world as suddenly as she had, disappears from the world as suddenly as she had appeared. We do not know anything about her past because no characters knew about her past. This unknown and suddenness of her coming and going leaves a deep impact on the reader. That to me was beautiful as a story, the way the story was told, the incompleteness, like my conversation with the author, made it beautiful. These characters may not be the men and women of letters, as Onu Babu, the author, our beloved author, the way his mentor and master narrator address him is not men or women of letters. But these characters are singers, poets, and actors in their own right, not to mention the powerful narrator that Rahmat is. So the book exemplifies, this is another point I'm making, exemplifies how tenderly religious and cultural heterogeneity in a society can be treated as an author, what he had observed. When I read the characters and the stories and their intimate association with the family of Onu Babu, the author, I understand what had shaped the inclusive mind that Professor Arun Gupto has had from ever since I first met him. That's why this is a Arun Gupto code, I said. In that sense, Cracks in the Wind is a story of a beautiful coexistence across cultures and religions, and of humans with nature. Nature, animal, deities, and mysteries have an important presence. They all play with each other, are each other's company. So Cracks in the Wind stands out as an autobiography because it writes about his life through stories of a few characters. He doesn't write about his own life by making himself a character, writes his story through his characters. Very importantly, I think this is important. Every sentence I have said, I felt important, but this is more important. So, very importantly, Arun Gupta does not make this book about himself. He makes this book about them, and they are him. I think this, as an autobiography, as its literary quality, it doesn't make it about himself. And you will see what I mean when you read it. That to me is a remarkable, very remarkable feature in terms of the quality of the autobiographical fiction, as well as about the author himself, making his story theirs and theirs his. Now towards the end of my time and my commentary. So now is the time to fulfill the promise. You know how I had to restrain at the beginning, how I might have earned this privilege to speak here. It was, I think, in the year 2001 when the Central Department at Kirtipur, Tribhuvan University, was undergoing a massive transformation. That was the time when new courses, it truly became interdisciplinary with the leadership of the professors who are in the room, where non-Western studies at that time, intellectual history as a paper, and so many, cultural studies, of course, from a few years before. So it was the time to go out and provide orientations to the colleges which also had master's program. And one of them was in Butol. I was perhaps the youngest at the department. Of course, I had that honor to go. And Krishna Chandra Sharma, who later became a head of department, was in Butol. I think he was the head of Butol campus at that time, was our host. And he had the Butol Nagarpalika guest house for all of us. Going from here, I think, let me not name, I think under the leadership of Sridhar Lohani sir. And then Arun sir, Sanjeev sir and I, we were placed in one room of Nagarpalika guest house. It was very shabby and really difficult. It was in monsoon. But Sanjeev sir, just back from the US, he had not finished his PhD. I think he was here in the meantime during his dissertation. He said, Vishnu, I have been working so much, because he's the kind man he is. He could not say no to, of course he was teaching at Kirtipur and this MPhil and then some other private colleges requested him, and he cannot say no, as those of you who know him personally. So ended up teaching several classes a day. So he was so tired in Kathmandu. Vishnu, I'm just fine to get out of Kathmandu. I can sleep anywhere. And in that room. And Arun sir was not commenting much. He was happy that he was in Butol, close to Bahadurgunj. And for me, I could sleep in any type of room when my roommates are Sanjeev Upreti and Arun Gupta. I could not complain. But it turned out that the rooms were really not nice, and then somebody raised this, and then within a couple of hours, we moved to a hotel where I lost my roommates. And I had another wonderful roommate, Rishikesh Upadhyay sir, in the hotel. But Arun sir and I, we had this secret plan to visit Bahadurgunj one of the evenings, borrowing one motorbike. Because he had been telling me, of course, like to many other people who were close to him about Rahmat and all these stories. So he said, Vishnu, we should go. I will take you. Of course, sir. Why not? And then so the purpose is, of course, not to visit Arun sir's house only, but to Rahmat, the main master narrator of the story. And then imagine the excitement, the sacredness and the secret plan. And then, of course, and we went on a motorbike, and I was at Bahadurgunj, and then I met the character, of course, Arun sir's house and parents, and so many, other, not many characters, but the surroundings. So now when I read, and then the influence of Rahmat and all those characters, how they live within him, how they have shaped him, the core that I mentioned earlier. And then maybe because I had met with Rahmat, that I earned this right to be a speaker today. That's my feeling. Now, my final point, that was 25 years ago, 2001, the incident. Now, finally, before I end, something from cognitive science for my conclusion is most of the cells in our body, they change, except some in the eye. But the 84 to 86 billion neurons that make up our brain, they don't change. We're born, the neurons, we're born with the same neurons, and we live with the same neurons throughout life. But what happens is, although they don't get replaced, we die with them, reformulation takes place. The synapses, memories live in those neurons. So most neurons in the cerebral cortex, which is where our thinking, language, memory, and consciousness, works, they're formed before birth. So I was thinking in the Hindu tradition, they say on the 6th day, chaitiko dina bhabile lekeko huncha भन्दा chaiti हुँदो रहेछ जन्मदै. If neurons are what we think and our consciousness, everything, we're born with them. So still, those neurons, they constantly form and eliminate connections, known as synapses or memories. They strengthen or weaken existing connections. I find this fascinating, and I find this very relevant to talk about cracks in the wind. Some of those synapses, they are very stubborn, especially those that were formed when we were a child. They refuse to reformulate. Millions of them change. In terms of possibility of the synapses, how many combinations can be made in how many memories, scientists say even more than atoms, because we don't know how many atoms there are. But the memories that are stubborn, that remain, and Carl Jung would call that the subconscious. We do not have access to all the subconscious. When we grow up, some of the synapses, the stubborn ones, they come back more powerfully. So my now commentary is with this context of the neuroscience, how our brain works and the memories work. So going through the cracks in the wind, to me, became a journey to go back to my own synapses, the childhood that I had, and the memories that I have shaped up my public persona. That way, the book enabled me to listen to the cracks of my own mind. In a place I come from, Sangja, and it's a Karen Dada, also very windy place, it's a Dada. I tried to listen to some of those cracks, but that is not important. What is important is cracks in the wind made me feel richer aesthetically. It offered me newer sensibilities and tenderness to look back into those memories, into myself. It became my own crack, and I would like to thank Arun Gupto for the gift to all of us in the form of this memoir. Just like I said before, every memory that we possess might have been reformulated in our mind. That is why, from this cognitive science perspective also, a memoir is almost inevitably fiction, as cracks in the wind is. And when something is fiction, it gives the author all the liberty he needs to write in an open and creative way, as he has done. Now, before I go, here is the last thing I would like to say. For me, Cracks in the Wind is a masterpiece representing the scholarly tradition of pure thinking. What is a pure thinking then? Well, you will see for yourself when you crack open the cracks in the wind. With this, I take leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sapkota. A big round of applause for this beautiful reflection that felt like a poetry on its own. There is something special about hearing one writer speak about another's work. Your humor, your candor has really given us a unique sneak peek into the book, the author, and the origin of the story. We kids of the family know Rahmat as Dadi Baba, and it's so beautiful to hear his name mentioned here on this day of the book launch. My Milo Bua, Mommy, Baba, Ma are also here, who I know feel the same. My childhood isn't mine alone. Like everyone else's, mine too belongs to those voices and presences that sheltered, shaped, and altered it. With this, I'd like to welcome Professor Gupto and his long-time friend, Professor Upreti, who will talk about the book, the story behind it, and everything in between. I think this conversation is going to be epic. The floor is yours. People towards the left side of the hall, you can come, some of you can come towards the right if you can sit.
So Arun, how are you feeling now? After all these years, as was told, he's one of my oldest friends. We taught at the university for so many years. And I was unlucky. Really, Vishnu went and visited Bahadurgunj and he met Rahmat. And so I feel that I missed something, but only in a sense, because these characters, Rahmat, Khema, Gungi, they've been growing within me because Arun has been telling me about them over the years. Sometimes when we were having coffee, sometimes when we would drive to Nagarjun and we will sit down and talk about that. Sometimes during dinners at my house or at his house. And sometimes when we were drawing charts, we had both this impulse to draw the charts. At that time we were younger. We thought that maybe we can capture the world within our charts. So we used to draw charts about like history of ideas, charts about literary theory. So he would tell me about Rahmat and Gungi when we were drawing those charts as well. So I started thinking that they are almost like his friends, maybe like relatives. So almost as if I would meet them sometime at his house for dinner, in the dinner table. But I met them in the book after all these years. Arun, one thing I wanted to ask you at the beginning is, and Vishnu also talked about that it's an autobiographical fiction. It's a memoir, but you also point at a number of times that it is constructed as a fiction, or there is a kind of a that kind of move, metafictional move, I would say, where you foreground this act of storytelling. And you remember at one time, you and me, we were writing a column together for Kathmandu Post. It was titled Fact and Fiction.
Yes.
So my question to you is, how much have you fictionalized these memories? Or do you agree that it's autobiographical fiction? Or what exactly is the genre of your book?
Yes. I always think that writing fiction or fictionalizing the characters is a kind of controlling them. So I saw them from my childhood. They were young when I was a child. They matured. They became old, and many of them died. It was decades of my experience with them. So it was always a kind of mood to control them. I'm using perhaps Jean-Paul Sartre's word that writing is a kind of controlling the characters. But controlling not in the sense, in terms with dictatorial control, but encompassing them, including them in my fiction. Both of them have read my memoir, and you might remember that when I, in a very fantasy scene, I meet a Buddha girl in the forest, and there are so many complaints about my inaction in the schools where I studied. And then I told her that I have come to meet her because we all missed her. My family, myself, my mother missed her. Then she told me kind of, this is what metafiction you might be referring to, if I can make it clear, that she told me that you have not come to me out of empathy or out of love, but you have come to meet me to weave the story, characterize that. So that selfishness, the selfishness of the writer, to control the character and then transform them into stories, is what fiction is what Khema is defining unknowingly, innocently perhaps, that what we do in life. So, and then another thing about this metafictionality is that I always had this, how can I control the characters, the real ones? For instance, I'm not interested in Professor Dr. Sanjeev Upreti or Vishnu until I fictionalize them. So that is controlling them. My affection for them, my friendship, my relationship for them is not only determined by what they really are, my professors, or my wife, my friend's wife, my professor Sridhar, they don't interest me unless they are my fictional beings. And that is why I am so close to them. And that is perhaps the metafictionality what you might be referring to. So, thank you.
Another, one of the most remarkable thing about this book are its characters, of course. As Vishnu was also referring to a number of characters. The thing is that, they are, as you also said, from the margins of the margins, subaltern characters, ordinary people, but who have extraordinary lives. And the conversation is very simple, the way Arun has presented it in a very simple language, but these ordinary characters speak profound philosophical truths. And the way he has written is that he has given depth and dignity to those ordinary characters. That I found remarkable. In the same line, I wanted to ask you first thing about this forest girl you were referring to, Khema, Buddha girl, like Buddha girl. What drew you to her? And do you think she is a tragic character, or do you think her wisdom transcends tragedy? And associated with that, who is your favorite character, apart from Rahmat, of course?
Yes. Actually, Khema is sum total of those people with whom I have lived and interacted. To tell you the truth, I needed Khema to end the story. And I needed Khema to be in the forest of, which I call Bo Forest, the mythical, the land of Buddha. Because she is the sum total of my wife, the goddesses of the valley, my students with whom I hang out for coffees, my girls in the family. So it is the totality of those. And then I always thought that how do I and Khema, I'm not going to tell you whether Khema is a real character from a school or not. I'm not going to tell when the monk from India came and left that girl in the school, how did it happen or when did it happen. But Khema represents those happiness and frustrations, despondencies, and then leaves Bahadurgunj and goes into the forest. This is very complex question for me, whether she is a tragic character or she transcends a tragedy with her wisdom. I really feel the sum total of Khema. When I was writing the final chapters of my book, then when I imagined, or when I met Khema or imagined meeting Khema, then I thought that when Khema was sad, when Khema used to be happy, I used to be happy. When Khema used to be sad, I used to be lonely. So that character made me, she was always there, infinitely there, the angel of the forest. She was infinite, the spirit of the forest, always there, as a kind of muse, as a kind of inspiration. And again I repeat, a sum total of the beautiful girls from my family to the academia I have interacted with. So Khema is an ultimate wise girl who is dissatisfied with the society and lives in a very isolated, lonely place. So she transcends tragedy to some extent because she does not commit suicide, she does not leave the world, but she goes into the realm of nature and then she stays alone. So that is why Khema is a wise character full of wisdom, transcending tragedy.
Yeah, that's how I took it. Another question is to move from the characters to the background or the setting of the novel. The way I read it is Bahadurgunj itself, it came to me vividly as a character, like the space, the place itself becoming a kind of a character. And it's a border town, and people there speak in Nepali, some people speak Hindi, some people speak Maithili, Awadhi, Bengali. So it's a kind of a very interesting and a very enriching in-between space, a space of cultural mixture. So that was very interesting to me. And then another thing was, I started thinking about the books like Malgudi Days, and Sherwood Anderson's Venusburg, Ohio, where they take these village spaces and use them as a microcosm to talk about the macrocosm, using the villages where the village no longer remains the village. Village becomes the symbol of the world as such, or the society as such. Is that how you took it? Like, was that your deliberate plan, or it something evolved as you started writing? How do you think of Bahadurgunj in these terms as the setting of your book?
Yeah, what happens that there are few spaces like Bahadurgunj or Kathmandu. They have the power, means I'm talking about my personal experience, that they have the power to territorialize me. They have the power to control me. Kathmandu had that power to territorialize my mind. They created dominion in my mind. And that is why I could write Goddesses of Kathmandu Valley. Bahadurgunj in same ways. Other cities, other towns have never done that to me. I have studied in India, I have studied in Kolkata, I have studied in the United States, but they have not been able to territorialize me. So these two, one very humble village and this particular metropolis, Kathmandu, they have some features, mystical or mysterious, real, imaginary, artistic, aesthetic features which have the power to, control me. Like I control the characters, the space Bahadurgunj controls me. So that is how Bahadurgunj becomes a kind of character to me. And so much of polyphony, so much of sound, so much of voices, so much of smell of winds, so much of animals, that it becomes a lively being where there are children and animals and people living within it. So that is what three levels of controlling happens when I personally write. I try to control the character and the place, like Kathmandu or Bahadurgunj, try to control me, territorialize me. So these kind of controlling which made me write Cracks in the Wind, or before this made me write Goddesses of Kathmandu Valley. And finally, what is interesting is that these characters and people, I have watched them for years, on and on and on. I was not in a hurry to write Goddesses of Kathmandu Valley. Even one day when I almost completed the book and I was conversing with Sridhar sir and said that did you mention something like this? Then I was thinking that I should complete the book, because if I talk to a wise man like Professor Loni, it will take 4 more years to complete. But then that became very important for me, because if I'm in haste, if I'm running fast to complete the book, I will be doing some injustices. Whether it is an academic book on Goddesses of Kathmandu Valley or a personal memoir like Cracks in the Wind, I had to take time. This is what I learned from him, that I had to take time. I have to be patient. I have to see them growing. In terms, I'm talking about memoirs. I have to see them growing. I have to see them, how they unfold their minds, their behaviors, how society cracks them. So many things I had. So I think it was a slow paced writing movement. Like Vishnu said that he went with me in 2001. The germination, the idea of the book was evolving. Then I stopped writing and I wrote many other books. But that particular, space never disappeared. So I always learned from my teachers, my friends, because 30 years, and Sanjeev could have easily been one of the characters in my Cracks in the Wind. I told him that he could have been. And then I must say that we 3 brothers grew in Bahadurgunj, years on and on. The Amit, the character Pikun, and Tapas, the character Tapa, means Tapa was like Hakpin, a notorious, schoolboy. You will never imagine him if you see him and talk to him now. Or Pikun, the doctor. But then this is what it is. I have to observe them years on and on and on, then write. That is, and then Bahadurgunj gave me that space to have patience.
It was wonderful to meet Tapa and Pikun in the book. I was not expecting that, but it was a very wonderful and nice surprise to meet you all there. Again, shifting the gears a little bit. Like many people know you as a theorist. You have taught theory, you have written theory, and your books on goddesses, they also take a theoretical take about the iconography and all those things. But here you have written a different kind of a book. And the good thing is about, like in some books when you read, theory seems a bit forced, as if theory is announcing that I am gender studies, I am postmodernism in a particular book. I didn't see that here. But maybe this is what I wanted to ask you, is like, there seems to be this kind of theoretical understanding, but it seems to be coming from your consciousness rather than forcing it. So do you think in some way, all the theories, and I'm also saying it because today we have Professor Lohani here, and Professor Abhi Subedi, Mohan Lohani sir is also there, and we learned a lot from them, especially Professor Sridhar Lohani sir. He guided us when we were doing theory, and both of us were teaching theory together for a long time. So do you think that, like theory in some ways has seeped into your consciousness and to this space, Bahadurgunj? Or if yes, how do you feel about it? What's the relationship of theory with your current non-theoretical book?
Okay. It's very interesting, Sanjeev, that a couple of days ago I was having coffee with Sridhar sir, and one of the major comments he made was that, Arun, you have given flesh to the theory. You have transformed theory into flesh. And similar thing, Abhisar also tells me that Arunle ke garcha bhane लेख्छ थ्योरी देवीलाई नमस्कार गर्छ थ्योरी देवी Where is Abhisar?
Abhisar is there.
थ्योरी देवीलाई नमस्कार गर्छ त्यसपछि लेख्न सुरु गर्छ. So, I mean, this is what I don't think that deconstruction or post-structuralism or post-colonialism or feminism are ever impediments for me. They give me critical acumen, they give me critical insights, but it is really difficult to not be theoretical while talking about the characters. But then perhaps by listening to your comments, listening to my friends and professors' comments, I think theory has become, I was very scared about that while writing Tracks in the Wind, that I might be theorizing Rahmat, or that was the danger, because I have taught literary theory and philosophy for so many years, and these both guys also, but they have written Hangsa and Adiyeka Pailaharu. And if theory comes, then it comes like a leaf comes to a plant. So that is what theory is me.
Wonderful.
We do not. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we are, Lisa, how we are situated for time?
We're good.
I think there is one more question actually on the lighter vein. Or as I told you, like Arun and me are compulsive, like chart drawers. So we make a chart, we used to make this chart about theory and hang it on our walls. And that process continues. We try to learn new things, and one way for us to understand is to draw them on chart. Only 3 months back, I think, we developed this interest in Formula 1 car racing. So we started drawing charts about Formula 1 car racing. This is a very recent thing. Did you draw a chart when you were finalizing like format of this book in some way?
And this is what I was talking to Sridhar sir also, that when I had to create that forest, bow forest, where Kema left to live, then I had to be very, very, very much, geographically, cartographically, imagistically, I had to be very correct. So where is the Tara temple, where is the banyan tree, the blueberry bush? So I made a chart. Of course I made a chart.
I knew it.
I made a chart. When we talk about cricket, Sanjeev and I, we have charts. He showed me chart of car Formula 1, and his daughter was surprised because I also came up with a chart. of all those, how means the spinners bowling, and then what is leg spin and what is off spin, everything is cartographically understood. Many years ago you understood, we studied we studied for 3 months the entire intellectual and political history of the world, 6,000 years of history, and then we made a huge chart. Sanjeev and I studied and then made that chart. So, and then there was another problem, because I was willing to ask a painter to paint that Bahadurgunj and that bow forest, and then I was trying to interacting with Sora AI, which Lisa had trained me to use. Then I was giving some instructions regarding a village in Nepal, and then this is the forest, this is the river, and at a distance you can see Dhaulagiri mountain and everything, But as soon as I gave the prompts, Sora AI would give the entire landscape of the mountains, Pahad ko. It is a tarai. So what do? I am making chart and taking help of AI, but AI is not giving me the description of the images of Tarai, where Chure Pahad is very nearby, but of the mountains. So what I did was, I had to befool AI, and instead of Nepal, I said a village in India. Then it made a Tarai landscape. So yes, the chart making is very much in our blood. And another person who has followed us very religiously regarding chart making, you know or you do not know that he makes chart, is Professor Dhruva Karki, the head of Department of English. He is our direct descendant.
In the art.
Thank you.
In this book, Baba, that's your own father who appears in this book, who tells Mo, that is your daughter. I don't know whether it's a fictional story or that's something Baba created himself. He tells that Ravana gave a Rasagulla to Ram. So I'm glad that I don't know about the other charts. At least one of the charts became a Rasagulla.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I think we are towards the end of this session. The only other things I wanted to ask you is, let's imagine that you were to rewrite it today or to start from the scratch. Would you make any changes, or do you think you would? Or would you like to keep it as it is?
Yes, because for legal reasons, I could not include Tapa's fight with some of the notorious village guys, where they had, boxing bouts, but I could not write because I would be favoring my brother, who would be winning in that story, and the real things might have been different. So I could not write those very, not violent, but very aggressive, because one thing, let me tell you, in relation to what Tapa was, that he fought with a goalkeeper, and his gang went and thrashed him, and then it was complained to the headmaster, and those days there used to be Pradhan Panch, and then the headmaster, being a very moral person, summoned Tapa and said that, Tapa, you should not be aggressive in the football field. Then Tapa said, he scolded me. Then he said, Gandhi, if you slap him, he would give his another cheek to be slapped. Then Tapas, being a very argumentative, notorious boy, he said Gandhi did not tolerate the slap of independence or slavery. Sir, he went away. So I would really include Pikun's I included Pikun's boxing bout with the monkeys, and then so many things were interesting. But because of legal reasons, because I'm afraid that I will be favoring my brothers, so I didn't write.
Do you have any other books coming up, or are you planning for something else?
I am going to really, I'm going to now, with my apology, I'm going to fictionalize my professors and my friends. in my next memoir.
So danger bells
Yes,
for all of us.
I will change your names. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this very, very super insightful conversation. It felt like a Saturday morning gobshop with Chia more than like a fireside chat. And we all know, even if they were home, this is what they would be talking about. So thank you for bestowing your wisdom on all of us. I am an avid fiction reader. And the fictionalization of the known has given me a new perspective for my next read after Cracks in the Wind. A very interesting thing I heard from Professor Upreti today is thinking about Bahadurgunj as a person on its own. And this feels like an epiphany. It reminds me of a series that I recently watched, Lost, where they've shown the island as a person having a mind of its own. And it feels so real. The inhabitants' lives shape the stories of a city, of what the place is used to, and it gives it a unique personality. Thank you for your critical observations. We have all learned a lot about the essence of the book. Now, I would like to call the author, Arun Gupto, Maithulogwa, for a few final words, please.
Thank you for coming here. I have nothing more to say, but I would really request you and seek, blessings regarding how you read this book, what your responses are, because that is very important for me. This is my first creative venture. I have worked very hard. I have listened to the advisors, my professors. Sridhar sir has, before I almost finishing the novel, he gave me some novels which I have already read. Sense and Sensibility, Old Man and the Sea, Arun Pada Yaslai. So it's a tremendous amount of hard work which has gone through. Hard work, dedication. And so if you read this book and come up with some comments and responses, that will be wonderful for our, not only for me, but the whole of reading culture, academia. That will be wonderful for Sanjeev and Vishnu and everyone. So thank you very much for coming. We have tea outside and we will meet again. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us a little sneak peek into the book and what it represents. That brings us to the end of the afternoon. Thank you, every one of you, for being here. Our seniors, our teachers, our friends from the media, the students who came, and our friends from Nepal television. It truly means a lot that you came to share this day with us. Finally, I would like to thank my Philomoni, Mrs. Soma Gupta, the heart and soul behind this event, who has brought us all together and has worked day and night to make this event a success. I would also like to thank Nepal Tourism Board and Mandala Book Point for every support in this event. Copies of the Cats in the Wind are just outside at the Mandala Viewpoint display if you would like one. There's tea and snacks outside, and if you would like to meet the author for book signing, he will be at the tea point, and I know he would love to talk to all of you. Thank you. Please enjoy the rest of your day.